Once upon a time, there was a lady who had no children. What the lady really wanted was a little girl. She went to a fairy and explained her problem. The fairy gave her a seed and told her a secret. Then lady planted the seed and very soon there was a flower. When the flower opened out came a little girl. The lady took the little girl home. "You are as little as my thumb," said the lady. "So I shall call you Thumbelina." Does this part of the famous fairy tale, Thumbelina, remind you of your childhood? Childhood and stories are inseparable. Especially, fairy tales are the first teacher who taught us of imagination. As a child, I was very much attracted to fairy tales. As I grew up, that attraction turned into curiosity of knowing who made all of them. Through my research, I learned that there was one fairy teller out of the many who lived a life that can teach even an adult a valuable lesson of life. He is Hans Christian Andersen. Hans Christian Andersen was born in Denmark in 1805. Childhood is the most beautiful and memorable part of our lives. Of course, it was the same for Andersen. Especially the time he spent with his father was great. Andersen's father was only a poor shoemaker, but all what he loved to do was to read. Reading made him lead a satisfying life, even when he was really very poor. He didn't keep the bliss of reading to himself. He read stories and fables to his son every day. Listening to stories from the father made Andersen grow up with love of literature. The father and the son were good companions. Together, they made panoramas, toy theatres based on the stories they read. They went on long journeys into the countryside and admired every amazing feature of the nature. Our childhood is not just a beautiful memory. It is often the knowledge and experience we gain in our childhood help us throughout our difficult times. While his father was alive, Andersen's life was very simple, yet wonderful. When he was 11 years old, his father was died, and Andersen had to take care of himself and his poor mom. He started to do what he knew and what he liked in order to make his living. He used his creative skill in singing and reciting and earned money. But it didn't provide with him enough to survive. Then he worked for a weaver, later for a tailor, and tried many other jobs. None of those were satisfying Andersen. At last, when he was 14, he left his hometown with the goal of becoming an actor. After 3 years of continuing failures, his excellent voice brought him the opportunity to join the Royal Danish Theatre. He worked there, believing he is in the right track toward his goals. But very soon his voice broke and he was dismissed from the job. We never know which moment of our life is momentous as to change it forever. That moment took place in Andersen's life when he lost his job. A friend told Anderson that he had great creativity, so he can become a writer. Anderson took his suggestion seriously and began to write. He published his first story when he was 17. The director of the Royal Danish Theatre saw Anderson's writing. Believing in his potential, the director put him in a grammar school, covering all his expenses. Anderson wasn't a great student. Once he was said by his teacher that he's a stupid boy who will never make it. Even as a student labeled a stupid boy, he didn't stop writing. It was the only thing he loved to do. He continued to write and publish more stories and poems. Writing was his breath. It gave him peace. He was devoted to writing, and that made him become a successful writer. Rewardingly, he received a traveling allowance from the king and started to travel through Europe. He kept writing throughout his journeys. Traveling made him more creative. Devotion never ends. Anderson's stories, novels, poems, and fairy tales were published. They spread his fame every corner they reached. More than any other, Anderson was recognized for the unique fairy tales he had created. He was celebrated for his great contribution to children's literature. In 1875, at the time of his death, he was an internationally well-known artist. His writing has been translated into more than 150 languages. There are statues of Anderson, parks, and theatres named after him all over the world today. The Hans Christian Andersen Award, known as the Nobel Prize to Children's Literature, is named after him. Anderson's birthday, the 2nd of April, celebrated as International Children's Book Day. To look back at what made Anderson succeed, it is the choice he made. The choice he made to do what he liked, what he was comfortable with, and what gave him satisfaction. Of course, when it comes to deciding what to do with our lives, most of us are left confused. And I think that's when Anderson's life sets an example. Especially at this point, just before a month to get graduated, the question that always bothers our heads is, what is next? I hope the lesson of Anderson's life will guide us in making the right choice. When we do what we really like, we get devoted to it. Our work turns into a meditation and results perfection that makes us reach the peak of success. Of course, life is lived when we do what we really like. Let's choose to do what we love to do. Do it great.